236 days. Yeah, from the time that you're watching this particular report right now, it's been 236 days since January the 1st. That's right, the Rose Bowl. And it still pisses you off as a Sooner fan of how close Oklahoma came to victory, but fell short in double OT to those damn Georgia Bulldogs. Yeah, almost a national championship game appearance, but not quite for the Crimson and Cream. But still, it was a marvelous season for OU. I mean, a 12-2 record, a Heisman Trophy winner, a Mackey Award winner, and by the way, a third straight Big 12 championship. Not bad for Lincoln Riley, the head coach in year number 1, taking over for the legend Bob Stoops. Yeah, Riley did one heck of a job with this program. And by the way, Riley was awarded this past June with a contract extension, 5 years, $5 million per year. He'll be there until 2023 at least. Yeah, Lincoln Riley, you got to tip your hat to it. Entering 2018, can Oklahoma make it 4? That's right, 4 straight Big 12 championships and get back to the college football playoff. By the way, the Sooners are the only team in the history of the college football playoff to get there with 2 different head coaches. Okay, a little fact for you. Of course, we have to start with the quarterback position and life without Baker. Yes, life without number 6. And look, it's not fair for anybody to compare Kyler Murray, the projected starting quarterback, to that of Baker. I don't think you can compare anybody to Baker. Baker is a legend. There you go. Enough said. There'll be a statue of him outside Gaylord Memorial one day, probably real soon. Kyler Murray, though, does bring athleticism to this position of signal caller. Also, too, a very strong arm. And we know his breakaway ability, which we got a glimpse of last year in the regular season finale against West Virginia. Murray is a proven winner in high school, 3 state championships, and never lost a game as a starter. And of course, we know about his baseball playing ability. In fact, this will be the last season, unless you know something I don't know, that we're going to see Kyler Murray playing football. Next year, it's off to playing pro baseball with the Oakland Athletics system. So, Kyler Murray, I'm curious to see how he will handle adversity, okay? When there's a fumble, when he gets sacked, a blown assignment, an interception, how will he respond mentally? That's going to be the big thing. And can other players feed off of his positive emotions? That's going to be something big for the Sooner offense. Austin Kendall, he's the backup quarterback, and actually has had a very good August so far. The sophomore with a very strong arm, of course, does not bring the athleticism that Kyler Murray has. The running game, you know the Sooners are going to be stacked in this area. Rodney Anderson already getting a lot of All-American mentions, and why not? Last year, the guy rushed for almost 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns, 6.2 yards per carry. He put up these big stats despite the fact that he only touched the ball 118 times. That's because he didn't really touch the ball much the first half of the season. As you might remember, the first 5 or 6 games, it was running back by committee for Lincoln Riley's offense. But second half of the season, we saw him touch the ball a lot more. So Rodney Anderson probably will go to the NFL after this season. It'd be a shock. Remember, he's a junior. Trey Sermon will be his backup as a freshman last year. 6.1 yards per carry, 744 yards off just 121 carries. So Trey Sermon, a reliable backup. Marcellus Sutton, who will also be returning kicks. He'll be involved in the running mix, had 5.9 yards per carry. And Kennedy Brooks probably will be the number 4 guy in that backfield. The fullback, big shoes to fill because Dimitri Flowers. He was extremely valuable when he had the ball, but more effectively when he was blocking. And you have to replace him. Jeremiah Hall, the freshman, could be the number 1 guy, or they could end up going with Carson Meyer, who played every game last year, now reaching his senior year. So that's a big decision coming up for that staff. Well, remember the wide receiver position last year? This was an area of doubt for the Crimson and Cream. That's because they had lost not just the Biletnikoff Award winner and D.D. Westbrook, but also they lost Jeff Badette. Well, the Sooners last year answered all those doubts with an emphatic, we're still damn good at receiver. And you get many of those weapons back, including Marquise Hollywood Brown. That's right, Hollywood last year, he definitely had celebrity-type stats with 57 catches, over 1,000 yards receiving, and had 7 touchdowns. Also, you return C.D. Lamb, who as a freshman excelled with 46 catches, over 800 yards receiving, also had 7 touchdowns. He'll also be returning punts. Michael Jones was effective as well, 16 catches, 310 yards, and had a score. And Nick Basquin, we should see him play. Last year we didn't because of the August of 2017 injury, which sidelined him for the entire year. A.D. Miller should be involved in the mix, as should Charleston Rambo, who redshirted last year. The tight end position, you lose the Mackey Award winner in Mark Andrews, who was ever so reliable for Baker Mayfield. Well, just like Mayfield, Andrews is on the next level. So Grant Calcaterra, we saw some of him last year, only 10 catches, but 3 of them were for touchdowns and some difficult grabs, if I not say so myself. Calcaterra, I think, has the capability to be that next big-time tight end for this Sooner team. He definitely has the physical ability to do so. The offensive line for the Sooners, you do lose Orlando Brown, the third-round draft pick from the left tackle position, but you've got so much experience that this offensive line should still be one of the best in the college football ranks. Bobby Evans, he's back. I got to imagine that they're going to use him at left tackle. He's been used to the right side. I think they're going to put him at left. Started all 14 games last year and has had 26 career starts. Ben Powers, he's a senior at the left guard spot. Total of 22 starts in his career. Jonathan Alvarez, he's played guard a good chunk of his career for the Sooners. Probably will move him to the center spot for his senior year. Did not play last year. They redshirted him, but he's had a total of 13 starts. Drew Samia at the right guard position. He's a senior, also an All-Big 12 player from a year ago. Has had 34 career starts. And at the right tackle spot, Cody Ford, entering his junior year, has had 7 career starts. 4 of those starts occurred last year, played in 12 games. Some other linemen to keep in mind, Creed Humphrey, probably will see him at the center position in rotation. And Bray Moore, might remember him from a year ago, the Oklahoma High School Player of the Year out of Westmore, 6'6", 330, will probably be a backup to Ford at the right tackle spot. Keep in mind that the Sooners a year ago were the #1 offense in the country in total yardage, almost 580 per game, #1 in passing efficiency, and #3 in the country in scoring, 45 points a game. Now, I'm not expecting them to put up numbers quite that godly this year just because, number 6 isn't there anymore. But this will still, keep in mind, if Murray can be an accurate passer, it will still be an offense that can hurt you through the air or through the ground with that experienced offensive line and the playmakers that they do return. While the offense certainly played at a national championship winning level, the Sooner defense didn't always reach that particular stage. Yes, Mike Stoops, and look, I'm not going to be quite as hard on Mike Stoops on this show as a lot of people have been hard on him, especially Sooner fans in the past, especially recently. Yes, there were some breakdowns, okay? For example, we know the Oklahoma State game. Sooners gave up over 50 points. The Iowa State game, where they had a second-half debacle and ended up losing that contest. And, of course, the Georgia game, the second half, and the overtimes. Yeah, Mike Stoops' defense didn't exactly rise to the top. But if we're going to criticize Stoops' defenses when they don't succeed, we got to at least give them credit when they do. The 2 games against T.C.U. last year, amazing defense. And, of course, on the road in Columbus as an underdog against Ohio State, holding that Buckeye offense to just 1 touchdown. So we know the Sooner defense can do it. We know they're capable, but the big thing they've got to have is a pass rush, okay? People can say that the secondary sometimes gets torched. Well, when they get torched, it's not always on them. You got to be able to pressure the quarterback, make him throw earlier than he would like, and maybe in positions that he wouldn't like to throw to. That's going to be the big thing for Oklahoma entering 2018. Can they get a pass rush? They were second to last in the Big 12 last year in sacks, second to last in the Big 12 in plays for lost yardage. So we're going to see if this Sooner defense will primarily be a 4-2-5 that Stoops will run. We'll see if they can rise to the challenge and at least improve on quarterback pressure. Up front, you've got Kenneth Mann, who I think can get the job done rushing the quarterback. Last year, 5 sacks. He's at 6'3", 264. Brings that physicality and speed that you need at the defensive end spot. And I think Ronnie Perkins will be involved in that rotation as well. The 4-star freshman that they got from St. Louis, Missouri, I think will be a part of the mix. Now, in terms of the tackles, you have Marquise Overton, the nose tackle, a senior, played all 14 games last year, had 43 tackles. Neville Gallimore, they'll use him as a DT, 28 tackles from 2017. Amani Bledsoe, he'll be a part of that mix as well. The Oklahoma Sooners defense, again, has to step up in being able to supply pressure to make life easier for everybody else following their responsibilities. Of course, you lose DJ Ward, but again, you have a lot of experience back. Now more than ever, very imperative for these linebackers to step up because you not only lost an All-American in Obo, your best pass rusher, but you also, too, lost Emmanuel Beal. So coming back, though, you do have the Big 12 Defensive Freshman of the Year. That's Kenneth Murray. Second on the team in tackles last year, and the leading returning tackler, you get Murray back, who had 78 stops in 2017. At times, very effective. In fact, usually very effective, but did show those moments where he had a lack of experience and just overall looked like a freshman. Probably the biggest example would have been that game against Georgia, where at times he was lined up out of position, which allowed the Bulldogs to get some huge rushes. So hopefully, Murray has learned from that. Hopefully he's had an effective spring and is having an effective summer. And if so, look for Kenneth Murray to be even better. And backing them up this year should be Levi Draper, the one-time big-time player out of Collingsville. Last year had shoulder issues, but you should see him this year. That's Levi Draper. Another linebacker position, the guy that they'll probably move to the will position, that is Caleb Kelly, the one-time five-star recruit out of Fresno. This is his third year playing for the Sooners. 19 career starts, and last year started every game except for one. 56 tackles for him in 2017. Expect a big year from him. And Curtis Bolton, he'll be a part of that mix. He'll probably be the backup to Caleb Kelly. When the Sooners do decide, though, to line up with an outside linebacker, expect Addison Gumps to be a big part of that mix at 6'3", 253, very athletic. Also, too, Mark Jackson Jr., who could be, by the way, the most effective linebacker as far as getting to the quarterback. So look for Mark Jackson Jr. To have a fine year. Played every game last year except for one. Now, looking at the secondary, the corners, got plenty of experience there. Trey Norwood, a sophomore, he's back as a freshman. Last year started in 5 games. In fact, started the last 5 games of the season. Norwood had 30 stops and had 8 pass breakups. And Parnell Motley, we know about his story, had the very effective spring of 2017. He dazzled the first part of the season. Then the middle part went to a slump, but then picked it back up the latter part of the year. Motley with 63 tackles, led the team, by the way, with 9 pass breakups. Some other guys you'll probably see at the corner position, Trey Brown played every game last year, started in 1. And Jordan Parker, boy, he had hard luck last year. Remember that season opener against UTEP, the knee injury on the punt return? That sidelined him for the 2017 season. But he's back. And look for Justin Broyles to get in some action. Broyles from Oklahoma City, John Marshall, redshirted a year ago. Now, looking at the safety positions, yeah, you not only lose Stephen Parker, who seemed like played every game for the last 15 years for his team, but in actuality, he was a 4-year player and a very effective one. Will Johnson, you lose him too. So the safety positions, this is going to be the big question that Oklahoma's going to have to answer as far as the defense. Khalil Hogdon, most likely, will be the starter at the strong safety position. Played in 10 games last year, had 4 starts, and had 29 tackles. And Robert Barnes. Remember that big play he made in Bedlam last year with that interception in the end zone when it looked like the Cowboys were going to get its touchdown? Yeah, Barnes denied them, and that turned out to be one of the big plays in that game. You get Barnes back, had 1 start last year, played in 10 contests. A guy I'm pretty excited about hearing, I'm sure you've heard about this guy that will probably play the nickel position, but he can play safety or corner. Very versatile player, a freshman, and Brandon Radley Hiles, nicknamed Bookie. This guy, a 5-star player out of the IMG Academy, was an early enrollee, and I've heard nothing but great things about him, and he will play and play quite a bit. Don't be surprised if he starts in that opener against Florida Atlantic. And finally, let's talk about the special teams. We already mentioned that Marcelius Sutton will be the kick returner, and probably CeeDee Lamb will be your punt returner. Well, Austin Seibert has finally reached his senior year, a guy that handles double duty for the Sooners, and coming off his best year, by the way, both punting and kicking. First as a kicker, second team, all Big 12 in 2017, was 17 of 21 place kicking. And as far as punting, 42.3 yards per punt, all Big 12 honorable mentions. So the kicking and punting part, shouldn't have to worry about that at all. At last, let's break down the Sooners' schedule. Yeah, there's no Ohio State on it, but on the other hand, there's no Tulane or UTEP either. Those 3 non-conference games, Florida Atlantic, UCLA, and Army, are all intriguing in their own right. Florida Atlantic, yeah, they won 10 games a year ago, coached by Lane Kiffin, and have one of the best running backs in the country. So the OU defense better be prepared on September 1st. September the 8th, UCLA, we know they've got the athletes coming from the Pac-12. New head coach Chip Kelly, but I've got to think OU's got an advantage of this one. 1, playing at home, and 2, I think it's going to take time for the Bruins to adapt to the new offense that Chip Kelly has installed. So I think OU should handle the Bruins. September the 15th won't be easy. Of course, remember last year, Iowa State came to Norman and pulled off the stunner, handing the Sooners their only regular season loss. And this time you got to play them at Ames. But I got to think this time Oklahoma's more aware, and will take this game more seriously than they did last season. September 22nd, Army, just like Florida Atlantic, Army a 10-win team, but Army likes to play that wishbone, time-consuming type offense. So the Sooners, as long as they play as much mistake-free football as possible, in other words, don't turn the ball over, that should help in trying to offset Army taking up a lot of time off the clock. The Big 12 home opener is the following week, September 29th, Baylor. That shouldn't be a worry. And then the first Saturday of October, it's going to be the Red River Showdown with the Longhorns. Keep in mind, it's the first Saturday, not the second Saturday, which has been the norm lately. The Sooners have won the last two in this series, but both games have been close. A bye week, and then you have T.C.U. I think this is going to be Oklahoma's first stumble of the 2017 season. The Horned Frogs, very difficult to beat at home, and of course, very well coached by Gary Patterson. But the last 5 games, I think the Sooners get victories. Kansas State, you get them at home. I think OU will handle that game by double digits. At Texas Tech, usually tough to play in Lubbock, but Oklahoma lately has been able to play better in Lubbock, so I think OU should handle the Red Raiders. You get Bedlam in Norman, a big plus. And Kansas, well, we'll skip Kansas. They're not worth talking about. And then on a Friday night to close out the season, November 23rd, the day after Thanksgiving, I anticipate a lot of points in this game against West Virginia and their terrific quarterback in Will Greer. But keep in mind that the Sooners are a perfect 6-0 against the Mountaineers since West Virginia went to the Big 12 Conference. It won't be an undefeated season for the Sooners, but it's going to be a damn good one. I've got them finishing first in the Big 12 Conference and playing T.C.U. for the Big 12 Championship game. Keep in mind, I'll have the results, my predictions on the Big 12 as well as other major conference championship games and who my Final Four in the playoff will be on my special show coming up on August 29th. So make sure to check back with us then. Thanks for watching, and Boomer Sooner.